Hey folks, Kevin Madison here. Today I am resharing a conversation that highlights just how unexpected and fascinating a career in conservation can be. Barbra Sobhani is a master's graduate from Project Dragonfly's AIP program in Denver, Colorado. While we no longer accept students into that program, I wanted to share this episode because Barbra is absolutely fascinating. She works on a planetary scale as the director of the NASA Colorado Space Grant Program. In this episode, we delve into her incredible work with aerospace development and how she manages to connect the study of outer space directly to biological conservation and ecology here on Earth. We also talk a lot about her connection to the Galapagos Islands and our Earth Expeditions course in that location. It's a unique episode, and I really hope you enjoy it. Okay, Barbra, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So let's just jump right in with maybe you can just share a little about yourself, the top level view. Who are you and what kind of work do you do?
All right. Well, top level, I am currently the state director for NASA Space Grant in Colorado. And I am housed out of the University of Colorado Boulder. So I do a lot of work with undergraduate students and some graduate students on space-related projects. So that includes students at CU Boulder, but also because NASA Space Grant it's a statewide program, I work with students and faculty across the state as well. So we fund undergraduate research projects at different institutions, and we also run some awesome statewide programs. We just had our robotics challenge at the Great Sand Dunes last weekend, which was pretty neat.
What were the robots doing with the sand dunes?
So the Great Sand Dunes is an analog for Mars, and actually some former astronauts did training there prior to several the lunar missions way back. So it's a great place to do robotics, and our students design autonomous rovers. So the rovers have to navigate terrain on their own, so they're not remote controlled at all. And the teams can be super creative in how they make that happen. But we have everything from like really beginner, kind of just beginner rovers, to teams that are super advanced and figure out all kinds. We had a rover that could drill a sand core and take a sample. We had another rover that was able to stop and take a scoop sand sample for analysis. So yeah, there was a lot of really cool things.
Nice. I'm picturing the basic simple rovers, just the simple rover, which sounds way more complex than anything I could create. But I pictured like a little car toy remote control or something, but obviously more advanced. But yeah, being able to drill take a sample, a soil sample is a significant thing to engineer, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we have some teams that sort of pass along knowledge from year to year, and they just keep building on it and getting more creative and more advanced, but they're still undergraduate student teams, and some teams are even high school students that are concurrently enrolled in college classes. So it's pretty impressive what they come up with.
That is so cool. And we were talking before we started recording about your Zoom background, which is showing the Earth during the 2017 eclipse and the shadow. And obviously, we recently went through this amazing eclipse in totality event across most of North America. So what a cool time to be engaging people in, I don't know, astronomical studies, I guess, and space issues. And then I'm also curious, like, how does it tie to biology for you? Because I know you have your master's from Miami and Dragonfly. What ways do you see those two areas of your life interacting?
You know, that is a great question. When I told my family and friends that I was going back and getting another master's and going to do that in biology and conservation, they're like, "What?" Because it was seemingly in a different direction from the other things I do. However, it's actually quite interestingly related. I mean, I know NASA is known for its, rovers and missions to the moon and, that sort of thing. But quite a significant amount of NASA work is around Earth observation. And there's there's funding streams for research in biodiversity and lots of things that are connected back to what Project Dragonfly does. So I have an interest, well, I have lots of interests, but I have an interest in astrobiology in particular. So, looking at signs of life in the
Mhm.
universe. And, one of the ways that you study that is by studying extreme environments on Earth and how species survive in those environments. And that then is a really good way to look at species survivability with climate change. So, there's a lot of really interesting connections there. I'm trying to start up a new statewide program in Colorado. So we have our statewide robotics challenge. We have our statewide high altitude balloon launch program, which the photo of the eclipse from space, that was from a student project that was on a high altitude balloon during the eclipse, which is
Mhm.
super cool.
Mhm.
But then also there's projects that do atmospheric sampling on those balloons. We've actually sent up small samples of different types of bacteria to see how survivable they are in the atmosphere. There's so many different ways that you can connect to these things. And then all of that kind of circles back to, you know, developing a new emphasis on climate issues and monitoring of habitats for a variety of purposes. But we're working on some new like handheld instrumentation that students and classrooms can build and then go out into the field and take measurements of things like plant stress. And we're hoping to work on something that will also do handheld measurements of water quality. And then we help the
Mhm.
students connect that to like Landsat imagery and products from NASA. And you're doing ground truthing of satellite data. So I mean, there's so many exciting ways that these things cross over.
I love it all. And it's like the interest in life on other planets. I think that's something I've always been fascinated with, like the Drake equation, the whole like, estimates of if this many solar systems or this many suns, stars have a planet that's the right distance, and what is the probability that there's water, that there's gravity enough you can hold an atmosphere,
Yep.
and all these amazing things to think about, because it really does feed into conservation, because you realize how rare and elusive life is, that it's not a given. And certainly those early images of, I think it was Earthrise, right? The view
Yep.
of astronauts on the moon, seeing the Earth rising, and the stark contrast between the seemingly barren, well, the barren surface of the moon versus our beautiful blue planet. So I think it's, yeah, it's great that your friends and family were like, "Oh, what are you doing? Why biology?" And you've seen all these connections
Yep.
back to those two areas. Cool. All right. And so what was your master plan? What was your dragonfly experience like? Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2020 and I was in the Denver Zoo program.
Mhm.
So that right there was just awesome.
Yeah.
I've made definitely lifelong friends from that program. Several of whom you have interviewed. So
Oh, nice.
shout
Yes.
out to my friends. Uh,
Yeah, Denver is. We went out there. I'll just interject real quick. We went out there for one of our AIP retreats years. Like, I forget exactly what year that was, but it was such a memorable moment. Just seeing the zoo, walking around in the city park nearby, and everything in Denver. We also went out. We saw bison. We saw
yeah,
prairie dogs. All the things you think of with Colorado.
yep,
But yeah, truly a really unique land area there, and that AIP programs produce some incredible students. So yeah.
yeah. So I totally agree. I love Colorado of all the
Yeah.
things. My master plan was all around developing conservation leadership in college students. Prior to my current position as NASA Space Grant Director, I was actually at a community college as an educator for almost 20 years. So faculty, and then I developed a STEM honors program and directed and taught in that program. And then I was actually the dean over the STEM area at the college prior to taking on this new position. So a lot of things that I did, particularly in the honors program there, was to start to infuse more conservation leadership principles throughout the curriculum. And part of that was making sure that students had the opportunity to get outside,
Hmm.
get involved with conservation, and understand how that connects to community. Definitely themes that are right there at the heart of Dragonfly, with working with local nonprofits on things around native plants, around food security, helping connect the students and their curriculum to community issues and community connections. And then giving them some study abroad opportunities as well to Belize and Costa Rica and places like that. So that was really at the base of my master plan. And since I've moved to a different institution and I have slightly different role, I wouldn't say I have left it behind. I would say it has just shifted a little bit. I definitely am still working on infusing more climate and Earth observation science into our work here at NASA Space Grant. But then, in addition to like the work side of things, the things that I do in my free time are pretty much all conservation connected. I would say my love for plants and birds are kind of at the heart of all of that.
Nice. And I know you mentioned you're like a master birder and
Yes,
also an illustrator, a photographer. I mean, maybe go ahead and share about those
yeah.
hobbies. Yeah.
So Colorado has one of the few Audubon Master Birder courses. It's a year-long, pretty intensive program, and you gain an Audubon Master Birder certification, which I did complete. And then since then, I now serve on the steering committee for the Master Birder program and act as a mentor for upcoming Master Birders. So get to lead field trips and mentor new birders, which is super fun. And my love for art and photography have melded in. I worked for several years on a botanical illustration certification through the Denver Botanic Gardens, which is an amazing program. And now I spend time trying to capture not just native plants, but I do a lot of work on illustrating native plants and trying to find venues for that work to raise awareness.
When do you have time to just watch Netflix like the rest of us? You're gonna be so
Um,
behind, Barbara, on all the things.
well, the few times and during the year that I end up getting sick or something and I can't work, that's when I watch Netflix.
Catch up. Yeah, binge it all. No, it's great you found these cool programs that help you because I think a lot of people have the impetus to become, I don't know, more naturalist or to do more art or botanical observations. Like I can think, oh, that sounds lovely. But how do you actually make it so that you're going to do that in life? Well, you sign up for a program, you commit, and as a result,
Right.
and you're with people that will support you. And then next thing you know, you're a master illustrator.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's a lot of work along the way, but I think those are the keys is finding the programs and the support systems. So,
Yeah. I mean, and definitely will thank the Dragonfly program for that because I initially made the connections to those groups, to Denver Audubon and some of those because of the work that I was doing in Dragonfly.
oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, I worked with Denver Audubon on, an early bird study that I did for one of the classes and that forged that initial connection. And
Mhm.
then, then I got interested in Master Birder program. And it also led, I actually lead naturalist classes for Denver Audubon from time to time as well. And that none of that would have happened if I was not working on, projects for Dragonfly, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I mean, so many of the courses, as you know, I mean, it's funny because like Miami classifies this as an online program, right? But that doesn't, you know, it's yes, you interact with your peers largely through it online, but the whole program is asking you to do things actually in your communities. So
Right, right.
um, it always strikes me as funny because it's like the assumption is that people are just sitting there clicking through modules or something online, and that's just not really how this program works.
Absolutely. And at the time that I decided to, because I'm an older learner, and so the time I decided to apply for the Dragonfly program, I did look at other
Mm,
things. It one of the reasons that I ended up doing it is I was taking a lot of, courses, free courses online, like
mm.
edX and Coursera and those platforms, and just for fun because I enjoy learning new things and I'm always looking for new information. And then one of my friends was like, "You're taking these for free and for no credit? Why?" She's like, "Why don't you take something for credit?" I'm like, "That's a good question. Why don't I?" And then I got this email from Denver Zoo because I was a Denver Zoo member, about the AIP program. I'm like, "Oh, maybe I
There
should
you
look at
go.
that." And then, here we are. So,
Yeah. And now you're also working on a PhD. Do you want to share about that?
well, so my educational journey has been long.
Hmm. Yep.
Um,
Lifelong learner. Love that
Lifelong
term.
learner,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, sort of I did a lot of traditional age education. I started actually at a community college. That was my first foray into college because I loved all the things. I've not changed a lot. I didn't know what I wanted to major in, and I wanted to take classes in everything. And so I started out community college, and then I transferred for my undergrad in physics, and I ended up graduating in both physics and geology, and then I went on to do a master's, and I did a master's in the geosciences with the focus on geophysics, and then I got to work in a national lab for a while, which was super cool. I didn't get to do anything like secret or anything like that,
Okay.
but I did get to work at Los Alamos National Lab, which is pretty neat.
That is.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I decided to go back for a PhD, and I worked on pretty much all of my PhD work except for finishing the dissertation, and then I got hired as a full-time professor. And so all of that kind of got on hold.
Mm,
So, you know, it is my goal now to go back and finish.
gotcha.
And part of that is the inspiration of going back and doing the Dragonfly program and getting another master's. And now my friends are like, "Well, are you going to finish your PhD?
How many letters do you need at the end of your
How
name, Barbara?
exactly? How many degrees?" I'm like, it doesn't matter. I just need to keep taking classes and doing research and doing fun stuff.
Well, I have a pretty busy life too, not nearly as much as I think you're describing. However, I did just sign up for it's like a plastics focus on plastics reduction and awareness of plastics in the environment. It's through Cornell.
Oh,
Their
nice.
I think it's through their civic ecology lab.
Okay.
And it's also not for credit, but I sort of was like, how am I gonna have time to do this? And yet I have been finding it so rewarding and beneficial, and it's very well organized, and it's like a 4 week thing, and you watch videos, and
Yeah.
you know, you do need these things in your life, I think, to kind of just keep you aware of what you might be missing otherwise.
Yep.
So I think it's great that you've been peppering your whole life, it sounds like, pretty much with learning opportunities and enjoying the process. So speaking of, I know you're going to Galapagos this summer, you were saying. So maybe let's hear about that one as well. It's very jealous.
Well, I was very lucky to do an EE to the Galapagos 2 years ago as an alumni. I was supposed to go to the Galapagos while I was still in the program, and that got canceled due to COVID,
Sure.
unfortunately, and it was
Hmm.
very sad. But I reapplied as an alumni and was able to go. And it was definitely one of the destinations that, because I had taken students to other countries and other, with similar emphasis on conservation issues and species and all of that. But it was really my goal always to get to the Galapagos to really experience what's happening with conservation in the community there. And after doing that, I'm like, I need to figure out a way to get back there. And so the group that I have worked with for many years on student travel, I was on another trip with them and they said, we need a leader for the Galapagos trip this coming summer. Are you interested? I'm like, sign me up. um, so it's actually adult learners that are going to be on the trip, quite a few Audubon birders that are going
Uh-huh.
to be there. And we're not exclusively focusing on birds. We are doing more endemic species across the board, but I'm really excited about it.
Nice. I taught that course a number of years ago. I felt so honored to be a part of it. And in terms of birds, I think seeing a lava gull, I just was looking this up.
Yes.
Lava gull was like, and it's funny because like it's uh it's got the coolest common name, lava gull. But it's all well, ultimately it's a gull. It's just a seagull.
Right. But
You could be
it's
like, oh, it's just, but go
but it's
ahead. What
very cool.
so
And
cool looking. Yeah.
and then the Galapagos penguin and the blue-footed
Yes.
booby and
Yeah.
the waved albatross. I mean, yeah, so
Well,
many good
the
things.
blue-footed booby is a funny one also because people go to Galapagos and they buy the t-shirts and they all have the blue-footed booby on them and it's like the big thing there. And
Yeah.
then you go to like Baja or Baja Mexico course, right?
Yeah.
There are thousands of boobies, not just blue-footed, but brown boobies.
Right.
There might be one or two other species that are sometimes there, I think, but they're everywhere there. And I'm like, why are the gift shops not really that excited about blue-footed boobies? Here, the Galapagos is all about them.
Right.
Um,
Because I actually, the Galapagos penguin would be more like
More
state
endemic. Yeah,
specific,
for
right?
sure.
But
Yeah.
but again,
Boobies are
yeah,
like worldwide, I think, or
yeah,
well, oceanic worldwide, right? So,
right. Well,
um,
but then we get back that there's charismatic species, right?
yes.
And
And
blue-footed boobies.
probably with a name that appeals to tourists of a certain ilk as a funny thing to
Yeah,
purchase on a t-shirt or something. But
yeah.
Um, very cool. So yeah, that's that. And also for me, the giant tortoises, clearly that's
Oh,
the most amazing thing to see. One of the most
absolutely.
amazing things to see in the world biologically, in my opinion, is the giant tortoises,
Yeah.
Galapagos.
And
Um,
then I,
yeah.
as a birder, I had to spend a lot of time trying to make sure I could identify the different finches,
Oh yes.
which is actually harder than you would think.
I know. We spend a good amount of time. Well, it's like their beaks. They're tiny, just like
Yeah.
slight differences in the beak to head. I don't know.
Yep.
You're trying to get it from an angle.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time drawing them because for me, that's one thing that helps me remember and really
mm,
notice the details is illustrating. Um, you know, I will take photos as well, and that helps me because then I can go back to the photos. But illustrating in the field as well as doing more detailed illustrations from photos that helps me solidify species ID and characteristics sort of for the long term, and then that helps me be able to point them out to folks later.
nice. Yes, drawing is a great method for observation, detailed observation. So,
Yeah,
and I think they are very drawable because they often perch the Darwin's finches. They
yeah,
often will come right up to you. I remember sitting on a beach there and we were having some food, and yeah, these finches were just hopping right up, and you can read about like
yeah,
what it is to evolve in a predator-free landscape and how that can change behaviors of
right,
all different taxonomic groups, not just the birds, but the sea lions could care less about humans. The tortoises could care less. There's a lot. But then seeing it and experiencing it, and it makes things click in your mind like, huh, this is why
right,
island extinctions with human arrival historically has been such an issue. One of the reasons why, right? So,
Oh, absolutely. And back to the blue-footed boobies, it's the same. You can literally walk right up to them and they just will, sit there and look at you. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible, when you're used to birding in the States, and you can't really, there's not very
yeah,
many species that will just stick around and hang out
right.
with you. I mean,
Very
maybe
special.
pigeons.
Well, I'm sure you're going to have an amazing trip with the group. How many people are going to be on it?
12 people.
Okay, cool.
So yeah,
Nice. And you have your binoculars and your
absolutely. My
journal and
spotting
everything ready to go.
scope and
Mhm.
and we actually we're gonna because I do a lot of illustration, we're gonna do a lot of nature journaling while we're on the trip as well. Because I teach nature journaling classes too. So we'll be doing some of that.
Awesome. I feel like we could talk for a very long time, but I am going to start to maybe wrap up. But I'm just curious if you have any advice you might want to give to either the rest of the Dragonfly community, and maybe current students who are thinking about their career or even alumni thinking about their career. Is there anything you would like to relay?
Um, Several things pop into my mind, and one is it's never too late. It's never too late to take the step and do a master's. You that's one thing that I think Dragonfly does well. Having been in the program as a much older learner, I think there's opportunity there. And I think it's a really rich experience for everyone that's involved because of the diversity in the program. You have people coming from all different careers, all different points in their career, and coming together in these cohorts. And it's so great. You really learn from each other. At least that's how I felt with our cohort. I felt like we all really learned from each other and helped inspire each other and go in all different directions. It's one of the reasons I keep volunteering. I've worked as an alumni leader for several years. Any way to just stay involved and keep people inspired and um, help make connections. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest benefits, in addition to, of course, the knowledge and the learning, is that, this program helps you make connections. And that's what I would emphasize with folks in the program, folks who are alumni or even thinking about it is, how can this program help connect you with your own community as well as, communities across the state and across the world? And you don't know what kind of creative solutions are going to come up because of that. I found all kinds of connections that I never would have dreamed of just because of my involvement in the courses. And it's led me to a lot of interesting places that I don't think
Mm.
I would have gone otherwise.
That is so wonderful. I love it. Yeah, it's never too late. And the connections for sure. I think for me personally, like as my daily to-do list always pile up all the things I want to do. And then kind of living serendipitously through others who are doing different things, like, that are, and then I feel like I don't have to do it all, right? Because as a
Right.
community, I know Barbara's out there doing this really cool as the NASA Space Grant director. And, you know, it just makes you feel like as a community, so many wonderful things are really happening. So there's strength in that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the interdisciplinarity, I think, is another thing that really stands out to me. I mean, yes, this is a program, a master's in biology, but it's connected to so many other fields. When you're dealing with conservation and community, there's just infinite ways that you can go. And again, that was one thing that was really exciting for me. And when I talk about the experience with others and try to encourage them to take that step,
Mm.
that's what I tell them. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this. So I'm going to connect this work to my students designing hardware for the moon, which is happening right now. So I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a way to make
Well,
it
it
all.
sounds like it's already inquiry and it's student driven, right? So
It
there's
is.
um
Absolutely.
you've got several steps down that pathway.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Barbara, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining and sharing all these wonderful experiences you've had.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Hi there, folks. Just one more thing before you head out. If you have a moment, like, follow, share this podcast. It really helps get the word out about Project Dragonfly and hopeful conservation. And I would love to hear in what ways you are finding this podcast useful, how you listen, what you would like to hear more of, less of, etc. Please feel free to send me any and all feedback, any ideas for guests to Kevin Madison at my email, which is mattiskc@miamioh.edu. That is spelled MATTESKC@miamioh.edu. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.